Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this is the second in my mini-series on what I'm calling right-wing psychology. And this one is focused on, is a follow-up to the last video I just did. But anyway, this is called Willful Leaders as a Sign of Strength, Superman Virtue. So in the first video, I talked about the basis for much right-wing propagandizing and discourse is about the willful defiance of what I call chiliastic ethics or chiliastic virtue, the idea that humanity has commonalities, that one should love one's neighbor as oneself, and the rejection of that by the right wing and the attempt to replace that with an alternative morality, and which constantly requires demonization and eliminationism often of what are considered to be the threats to this new truncated morality, stemming from world religions, and in this case mostly Christianity. But the second part of this is that what I'm calling this willful leaders, or you can say strong men, usually they're almost always men, but in any case that there is a fetish of willfulness in the leader. So I wrote in 2011 Pathology of the Will, which was a play on the Leni Riefenstahl propaganda movie about Hitler and his rallies in Nuremberg, and these rallies that were, famous propaganda rallies, pageants, and she called these movies Triumph of the Will, or whoever, anyway, somehow these movies got labeled Triumph of the Will. And that is to me, or was an inspiration for thinking about right-wingers more contemporarily. And it seems to me as though this is a hidden, though not hidden in plain sight, a hidden aspect or of the right-wing psychology, and explains to me at least, the bifurcation of the movement into willful leaders and obedient followers. So there's a fetish there that all all of arbitrary decision making, all agency is given to a leader, a personality who impresses upon the public, or their followers, really, their supreme ability to project often a masculine, a macho strength of some kind. Usually it's not a physical strength, though it's rumored to be a physical strength, but it's not. They don't do things physically to prove their strength. Some do, Putin is a strong man, and he did various things to sort of show how physically fit he was relative to his age, and so forth and so on. But this is not necessary for Hitler. Certainly didn't do that, but we have the emphasis on willfulness, and that the leader is somehow all power, in ways so powerful as a person, inherent in their character, or they transmit the will of the nation through their body and through their mind, and so on and so on. So it's not so much. They could be considered to be an extraordinary person, but they're also just this channel, this of the national will. So they portray themselves as being the person who is enacting the will. They concentrate power, political power. If they gain political power, they concentrate it in themselves as much as possible. It means eliminating rivals. It means all kinds of bloody infighting to get to that position. It involves paranoid wariness on the part of the people involved in this struggle to keep the leader in that position of power. But it comes from, the structure comes from the idea that people are entrusting giving up their own wills to this person that they consider is their avatar, is their actor, the person who's doing what they want, that they feel like that is enacting what they want to do, and but don't feel like in their regular lives that they will do it, or they will do it under the instruction, under the leadership, with the permission of this leader. So the leader will lead them by what they say, the communications they give, the propaganda, and also the instructions implied, and in the case of often Donald Trump, but also sometimes directed by that leader. So anyway, this will, the concentration of will it harkens back to royal. It's a modernized version of the relationship of subject to sovereign. Okay, so this is a revised form or psychological structure harkening back to pre-democratic forms of government where there's a sovereign. And in the case of the sovereign, they were supposedly inheriting a genetic or somehow a divine right to occupy the throne, to lead the nation, so forth and so on. So they were somehow of the people because of their genetics, or because of some divine right, or because of some, succession formula that that people assented to, or that people thought was right and just, or the nobles thought was right and just, and they created, and they allowed this person to ascend to this throne. And so but anyway, this is an updated, let's say, psychology of that relationship. So that's one reason why, for instance, democracy, which is about everybody having their own will, that they need to be able to compromise with other people, that they need to be able to so a will that is not overly willful, in the sense of the will that where you, at the end of the election, if you lose, you lose. So this is where you see, in the example of Trump, the insistence that he won is this form of willfulness, okay, that he feels compelled, because of this psychology of the authoritarian personality, or two types of personalities, that the leader is supposed to insist on his will, and not supposed to appear to submit to anybody, and to appear to submit to rules, and he's always defiant of those rules. So this is this idea of being this will that is supreme over, and so there's a supreme will, and then everybody else sort of gives up their wills. In the case of the United States, we have a modified version of that, in that people are, it's not as with royal subjects, so forth and so on. It's a different thing. In the United States, we have this sort of free market religion where supposedly everybody is choosing via their own will, so forth and so on, what they want, and then some people come out ahead in that market, and so you have, and people are free. It's about freedom. So this is a fascism that has linked itself to the concept of freedom. So there can't be an overt a submission as there was in royal situations, or in formal monarchies where the king or queen is an absolute ruler, or not, in other words, non-constitutional monarchies where they're just a symbolic sovereign, but that where the rituals, they maintain some of the rituals of the feudal period. But anyway, but in this modern, especially the American version, you have people saying that they're for freedom, and that they represent freedom, that Donald Trump represents freedom, that they're about capitalism and freedom, so forth and so on. But when it comes to democracy, they don't. They only think that let's say certain people are entitled to freedom, and that their freedoms are, and their willfulness, so to speak, is subjected to, or is permitted by, and is led by this leader who is supposedly willful, and so forth and so on. So in the United States, it's potentially quite an unstable mix. So I'm not saying there's some kind of ideal. It's sort of a conflictless situation here, where you have these people who consider themselves to be mavericks and so forth and so on, and innovators and whatever, and at the same time that they have this sort of quasi-king-like figure, or a figure who insists on his own will despite reality and so forth and so on, and makes things up. So another feature of willfulness, which I went into some detail in my 2011 piece, is lying. So lying and willfulness go together. In other words, if reality doesn't correspond to your what you want, you lie about it and make it so it appears to be what you want it to be. So this is where maybe I should do a separate video on lying and willfulness, because lying is such a key feature of the right wing currently, and a key feature of the leaders, not just the leaders, but also the followers. So there is a commitment to, or a tolerance of lying, let's say, certainly, if not an encouragement of lying, to create the fantasy of this world of what you want to be happening rather than what is. So it's a way to buffer yourself from reality. So by lying, or by allowing permitting lies to be pumped into you via media, and from often originating from these powerful people, your supposed leaders, the leading example of your tribe, or who you think is your people, the real American, let's say, in the case of the United States. So anyway, so democracy, that's one of the problem, or why fascism, and when I'm talking about right-wing psychology now, I'm mostly talking about neo-fascism and fascism, though there are other flavors of right-wing. But anyway, that is why democracy is is so problematic for fascists, or in other words, why it's immediately anti-democratic, or let's say undermining of democracy, even if it plays by certain rules, in that the idea that the leader or the party or the is submitting to a rule of law that says, well, that all democracies have to have a rule of law, and have to say, if you don't get enough votes, you don't get the office, so forth and so on, or if your party doesn't get enough votes, you can't nominate the prime minister, and to run the government, so forth and so on. So anyway, but that system requires a limited willfulness. In other words, that one doesn't have an unlimited sense of a boundless will. So this is where, with Donald Trump, his willfulness is represented in a boundless way. So there can be no limits on it, according to his own psychology and his estimation intuitively of what his public wants, his estimation, which may be accurate, which is often accurate, that he sees that there's this public that wants someone like him to appear to be without any restriction, unrestricted, so powerful, so inherently virtuous. And I'm not saying virtuous in the sense of the Schilleastic Nächstenliebe, neighborly love form of virtue, but in the sense of being of a person of inherent worth, so but that his inherent worth is so high that he doesn't need to compromise at all with anybody, that he doesn't need to and that he doesn't want to appear to be compromising. Again, of course, in reality, Donald Trump himself has done these sort of things. He does appear to he talks a certain kind of game and so on and so on. He's not exactly a purified version of what I'm talking about, but he's a good example. And a lot of what I'm saying about willfulness applies very much to him. And and I'm proud to say that I wrote my the Triumph of the Will in 2011 before he really emerged as a political figure in the United States. So this is not tailor-made to Trump. So I in any case, but it does fit him quite well. So anyway, and I put the word Superman in the title, or I mentioned Superman because that's a calling to Nietzsche and the idea of the Superman, the Übermensch, and this is a fantasy of the right wing to imagine the transcendence of mere mortality, and that there's some kind of a form of being, a form of humanoid being that is superior to us, and so therefore is entitled to more, or isn't, if not entitled to more, they're able to organize through their superior powers more. But in any case, that leads to a sense of entitlement, or you treat them as if they're entitled to more because, or to all of it, to all of the will, to all of the power, the political power, because you believe that, because you think that they are in. So you are, for whatever reason, again, this goes against, it's contradictory, it's paradoxical in the American context of people being, these sort of, yeoman farmers, petty capitalists, major capitalists, so forth and so on, everybody being their own, boss in their own business, so forth and so on, that nevertheless in this political expression, they're giving up their power to this singular figure, or they're trying to, and you see, for instance, Ron DeSantis trying to play again these strongman games of appearing and showing, to be extraordinarily willful, and this is and asserting his will. He's someone who has done this apparently even before his political career, in interpersonally and so forth and so on, in the games he played with people he went on dates with, when he said the word thigh and he was waiting for them, went for THAI for the type of cuisine or type of nationality, and he waited for them to either to correct him or not, and anyway, so that, in other words, how submissive were his dates, and of course now this is interpretable also in terms of the politics of sexual or misogyny and sexism and so forth and so on. That's very obvious, but also just the willfulness is it's extraordinary and amazing in a way that is there, and also that has its own constituency. That's really the most amazing part. Not that a person like him exists or that he's somehow exceptionally gifted. He isn't, but he has an interesting, in my opinion, pathology of some kind that and not probably not only my opinion, but anyway, but that expresses itself in this petty exertion of will, but then that becomes, in the context of the right wing, a calling card, and a something that attracts people to him who are looking for this kind of dependence, okay, and also team play, and also with the desire for power, for more power in a way. So and I will get more into that in the next installment of this mini series about right-wing psychology. So anyway, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And I will also, by the way, in the description, put a link to my original 2011 piece, which I think I maybe did or will do in the other, the first episode, but also some other examples of the, of various the willfulness that I am commenting on, so you can, maybe see where I'm coming from there with this idea. In any case, please like the video if you're getting anything out of it, and please subscribe to Politics 2100, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.